Hi and welcome to another session about material nodes for Cycles Render. Today I'm going to show you how to make procedural textures without using any image texture at all. And we could start right away. So delete the box, press Shift A, Mesh, Plane, so we have a plane, create a new window and select the node editor. Then we need to have some material on the plane, so we select new and now we have the material. It's also good to have some light when we're working, so you can go to the word, use nodes, background, environment texture, and then select a good background. In my first session I used the winter forest, so if you don't know how to find it, you can just look at my first session and I will have it. If I now press render, you will see a very white image. So that is really good. And now we can go back to solid again. And we could also select view top. So we have this one very visible. The first thing I will go through is something called vector curve. And after that we will take the math node as well. But we start with the vector curve, and to use that one we start using an input. So Shift A, input, texture coordinate. So now we have, I can go a little bit closer so you can see the texture coordinate here. We use generated, and to generate it we will connect that with vector mapping so that we can change things rather easily. The mapping we will connect using Shift A and vector curve. So mapping and vector curve. And the vector curve we will connect with texture, a wave texture. So vector to vector. And finally we will put in diffuse to the material output. And if I now press render, you will see a lot of lines, which is normal for the wave texture. So even if I take away all those things that we started with, it is the same, because we normally get degenerated into wave texture. So we have not changed anything yet. Okay, now we have the generated vector going in here, and a vector is a point description or vertex description where we have one x coordinate, one y coordinate, and y z coordinate, and when we use the vector curve we can change the input and output. So we get like for each coordinate or for each axis we get 0 to 1. So we get x 0 to 1 from generated, y 0 to 1 and z 0 to 1 in here. And if I now click on the lowest point here, you can see it's x minus 1 and y minus 1. And x is always the input and y is the output. And if I click at the top, you can see it is x1 and y1. So that means that this type of line always have the same input as output when it goes like this. Before we continue, we should have this line at the same direction as the vector curve, because it's of course easy to work with. So if you press N, you get all the location and rotation and so on. So if you go to set and select 207 degrees, like that, 270 degrees, we will get a line like this. And I also, if we now select 270 degrees, it will work if you work with the y-axis. If you select some other degrees, we could work with the x, but since it's a plane, we will not use Z at all. But now we will use y. As I said before, it's starting on -1 here and 1 here, but from the generated it's not -1 that is the first, it's the zeros that is the first, so it's only using that part here, so we need to change that. So that is why we use the mapping node here, so we can scale things up a little bit, scale 2, 2 and 2, and that also means that if we scale up we move the location a little bit, so we also need to put that back. And if you put -1 on every place here, I think everything should work. So just remember these values here now, 270 degrees, -1 and 2. And if we do that, we should have something that works. So yes, look at this. If I now change the vector curve, I will change the texture. So the wave texture will get exactly the same pattern as my vector curve. So right now we can, if we want to, do nice lines here for the wave texture in a more precise way than just changing these 4 parameters. We can of course still change them, like if we change the scale we will get more lines, but it will have the same pattern. So we can also use like rings, and now we will have another pattern here, and that is because rings means 2 that is mirrored. So band is 1 and rings is 2 mirrored, so could be good to have when we are doing nice effects later on. The distortion and detail and data scale, they work as usual even if we have this scale. So yeah, then you have it. If we want to make something a little bit more complex, we can of course combine X and Y. Now we have not changed the Y, so the input of Y is also the output of Y. But if we change here, you will see that the value will change in the same way as we do at the scale here. So we can do things like this, and in that you get a lot of lines, which means the scale is very, very high. But of course you can do more than have straight lines. So if you want to start with a rather high scale and then have a low scale like this, then you just bend the y-axis as well. So now you can have it both on the x and on the y to create whatever pattern you want to. And that of course needs some practice before you get used to how you could do all these things with circles and so on. But it is possible, and you can get rather nice looking it works not that good for me, but you can get rather nice patterns like this if you want to. So play along and create whatever you want. But this, as I said, is the simplest form of texture. So we can also combine the vector curve with other textures as well. So let's see how that works. We will reset the x-axis, press the tool, and just reset the curve. And we go back to the y, and we reset that one as well. Reset the curve, and we change wave texture to something that is next step, like texture and checker texture. And it works exactly the same, but it's easy to see it in front of you. So now you can see what will happen if I change here. If I go up here, you see it will be wider, and it will be like a straight line if I do like this. And then I can of course just take it up like, and yeah, decide how much I want for each box, how wide I want each box to be. And I can of course do the same with this. As I said before, if you make this higher, like that, you will be getting more and more rows. And if you want to have less amount of rows in the middle or something like that, you can of course change these values as you want to. So you can play along exactly as we did with the wave texture and change the pattern for the checker texture as well. And you can do the same for all these textures, and I will not go through them all, but I can show you some rather nice effect before we leave the vector curve. So reset curve on the X and Y, keep the Y, take away the checker texture, and now we can, let's say, use the Voronoi instead. And using Voronoi is almost like creating X-rays. So if you want to do something like a spine or something, then you just drag that one down here, and you drag that one up a little bit, and now you can create the bone in the middle, so to say, like that, or whatever you want to do. The imagination is up to you what you want to do, but as you can see, you can get really nice pattern, and that goes for like masquerade and so on. That even if noise is just noise, you can by steering it in the vector curve set the scale, and by that creating patterns even in the noise and so on. So that was a little bit about the vector curve and how you can use it to create nice pattern on your textures. The next part will be on using the math nodes, and you can of course combine vector curve with the math node if you want to, but right now we will take away the vector curve and start using the math node. Now in part 2 we will erase the vector curve, and we will erase the Voronoi and instead add a wave texture that we combine here, and we will use the converter and separate like this, which means that we now have the possibility to add math for every axis. Finally, we will combine what we have done, so sooner or later we will combine it, and so we need both of these, one separate and one to combine, and we could make some room between them because we will put in some math nodes to make it work. If I just drag a line between, you will see right now that if I use only the x-axis, you will have that pattern on the wave. If I use only the y-axis, I will have that. We don't care about this one because it's about the height, and we don't have a cube, we only have a plane. Okay? So what I will try to do is create a circle. And since we're now not using the vector curve anymore, we can take the scale back again, and now I will add some converter math here, and I will copy that one. So Shift D and copy, and I will add it in multiply, and I will also add multiply here. And if I now take X and put it here, you will get a line, of course. And if I take Y and take that one here, you will get a line. And that is a little bit how it normally looks, but we now have another scale. So if I take away here, you can see it is changed a little bit here, not just the scale. And that is because you can, of course, change the direction and so on by how much you would like to multiply on each axis. Okay, I don't know if you know how to do a circle, but you use the square, which means you multiply the axis with itself. So if I just take x-axis like this, you can see that it suddenly turns like that. You can do the same with the y-axis, and now you have some type of start of a circle here. And now we can go back a little bit with the location. You can see when I go on that direction it shrinks, and if I go on the other, suddenly you see a piece of circle here. So a little guess would be that if it's in the middle, using minus 0.5 on x, I think I could use 0.5 minus on the y-axis, and suddenly we have a circle. And this will be the base for most floor tiles because they are symmetrical, and by using this type of mathematics that we have here, just put in generated, that could also be minus 0.5, and have the correct scale and let them to multiply with each other. You have the perfect circle. And since both is using the same, it will be the same regardless if you go from one direction to another direction, if you're not changing the math. As normal, you could of course change the scale here as well, and also distortion, detail scale works as it should be. Okay, what we can do more is add some color into this, so we don't just have black and white, and that we could do with the converter and color ramp, and we just put it in. So we take away this here, put the factor FAC to the factor here, and the color to the color, and now we can change these things to get it very sharp or get it a little bit less sharp, and also add different type of colors. So you can put, I don't know, red for instance, we can put like yellow here if we want that, or something. We can change these to E's or to cardinal or what we now like, and do patterns by adding more colors. So it's just to play around a little bit, and that was hideous. Something else perhaps we could take down that one. Yeah, you can sit forever and ever and ever and do a lot of things to create whatever you want to. Okay, so very simple. You can now easily create whatever you want to, and if you change the wave texture to something else, it will still have a circular shape in the bottom or in the start. So if you take away a wave texture and add like a checker texture, what will happen? Let's see. Just put in the vector and then the factor, and it will be a checker texture, so to say, in a circular way. So you can still change the scale, and you will always get this perfect square, but it will be smaller or it will be bigger. So you can get rather nice patterns by using the checker texture, which suits the most floor tiles very well. And if you combine that with, let's say, some wave texture, so you get a circle, then you get a really good pattern. So you can just add, like, say here, a wave texture, put it in here, use the same vector, and if you want to combine, just use color mix, take those two, mix them, and suddenly you have also the circles in play. Then you can select if you want a bigger scale or less scale or whatever, also on the circles, and do a lot of fun stuff. You can also connect with the rings, and you will get different type of, or you can have a saw, and now you can see that you can get like square, because the saw is more hard than the rings are, or sorry, the design are. So you can play around, and you can get a lot of things just with those two, the checker and the wave texture, combining the same wave texture as we have in the beginning. So I think this is a good start, just to play around, change a little bit about scales, try out different types of textures, like adding, let's say, a brick texture here will of course do quite different things. So now you have more advanced pattern, and you can, by changing frequency, scale and so on, get really, really nice patterns just by playing with these. And sometimes you understand exactly what you do, and sometimes you're just guessing, but even when you're guessing, you can get away with it and find patterns that works very well for you. Okay, so now you have the basic for how to create your own floor tiles, and we will now try to do a little more advanced mathematics than we have right now. I have now cleared everything between separate and combine, and now when we have learned how to use the math to do a simple circle, I thought we should add a level. So we shall now try to create a frame around the circle, because I believe that a lot of these floor tiles will have some type of framing around each plane. It will be a little bit more complicated, but I will take you step by step through it. And what we are going to use now is a lot of comparisons. So convert to math, and we will use a less than, and we will use a greater than. We will take the x to the bottom beach, and I will put this to 0.4, and I will put this to 0.4. And now I will explain a little what I'm doing here. I try to make the circle valid only inside here, but invalid in the edges of the plane. So if these values are true, then a circle should be here. If these values are false, then it will be like a straight line here, because then it will then create the frame, so to say. Okay, so what I have done is generated is the value 0 to 1, but we change the location to minus 0.5 or minus 0.5, which means that the lowest value possible is minus 0.5. Now I will take that if a value is less than minus 0.4, then it will be okay, then it will be true, and here we will have 1. And in the same here, if a value is greater than 0.4, then it will be true and value will come out here. Okay? So by doing that, we could then create another one. We can take this and do multiply. And that multiply will take this and this together, because if it's 0 here, then it will always be a 0 out here, because 0.0 times 1 is 0. Same goes for greater than. If that is 0, then 0 times 1 is 0. So that will always be false. But if that is 1 and that is 1, then will be 1 times 1, and that is 1. Then we get true out of this, okay? So this will only be true if both that value and that value is true. But it will not take out the value that comes from the generator over here. It will only tell you that it's true. So here will be number 1 or number 0 that comes out. So now we must add in the original x-axis as well. So we take another one, we put the math here, also a multiply. See if we find multiply. There we have it. We take the 1 or the 0 into the multiply and also use the x value. In that case, we will get, if this is true, the x value out here. Okay? And the next thing we will do is the circle thing. So we take another converter, add multiply, and we combine that with both, as you remember from the last thing I showed you, and we connect it here. Okay, that is all, but we also need to do that for the y-axis, so we can mark everything, hold shift down, and then shift D, copy it down here, connect it with the y, and connect y to the bottom, and connect y to the bottom, and connect y to the multiply. Bam! Now we have it. So by doing this, we could get a frame and then have the circle in the middle, which give us endless opportunities to do even more than we have done before. It doesn't need to be a circle, but this is just the base for it. Let's say if you want a nice thing here, you could just go up with the scale a little bit, and you will see that now you can have a round, a little bit rounder here, because now the circle and the square, they meet, so in that case it will be nice here. Another thing you can do if you want to is, of course, change things here. So instead of multiply, you can put, let's say, like divide. You can then go back. You remember this one from the square we did before using the checker. but now we do it with the circle. So you can do a lot of great stuff here, and you can also, we'll show you can also take in, if you want to do it more visually, of course, the vector curve into this. And let's say you want to do like this, then you invert it. So now you have another way to do things. And you could of course change this to rings instead, and on that way also get a nice pattern. If you want more square, we can go back again, just reset curve and set this to band as we had from the beginning, and scale 5, and change this to saw. If you change that to saw and you change that to rings, it will be a lot more squared than circle. So now you have another way of getting this to work. You can also of course go the other way around to make a simplified version of this. So as you can see, you have lots of opportunities here to do rather nice things here, and you can also of course add or put less colors, whatever you want to, if you want something that looks even more strange or fine, whatever you want to. So you have, as I said, a lot of things that you can change to make all kind of patterns. Then we've reached the final thing that I would like to show you, and that is that you easily can combine one input with another input, and by that get very good results. So let's show you a little bit how that works. We go to input, texture coordinate, we put in a generated, and as normal as an mapping we can take here. And what we can do this time is to use the vector curve, as you know, since the beginning of this session. So we put in a vector curve here and connect the vector with the vector here. And if you remember the values I used before, it was -1, -1, and -1, and you have to put it in correctly, and scale was 2. Okay, this is the old we had. I changed the scale a little bit here, but you can do as you want. And if I take this into, let's see here, checker texture, and take the checker texture in here, you can see the changes you're doing. So if we don't take the Y, I go up here, I go down here. Then I have a nice pattern like this, and I do the same with X. So I just take this one up, and I take this one down, and then we got this pattern here. As you remember, it follows along the line you have here, so you can do whatever you want. I do a set curve and then take it to once more, so we get it straight and nice. Okay, and then it's just to combine those two. So just put in Shift A, color, mix RGB, and put that one to the bottom and that to the top, and just put it into the color. Wow, you are now finished with a really, really nice tile that you can use. And yeah, change as you want to, with more rings, or let one shine through the other one, or whatever, and by that creating a really nice pattern. The next thing we will do is show a little bit how we could add glossiness and how we can save this as a real image texture that you can use, so you don't have to use all these nodes here because they are growing faster and faster. And yeah, since you learn more and more, you will of course add more things and create more advanced things here as well. So yes, we need to learn how to create texture. So that will be our next thing. Time to make a texture out of it. And we do that by adding some properties at the camera. So first of all, put it to orthographic view. We should take the location of the camera to be 0, 0, 0 and 0, 0, 0, and then we will put some height of it, so just put 1 on that one, and we go to view, camera. Now we see the camera here, and we have orthographic scale here, so we put 1 on that one as well. And we also change the render here to be 10, I want to be like this, and 100%. Now let's see, so we have everything correctly here. Scale. Okay, we have I think we have a plane that is twice as big, so we just go to the camera again and put orthographic scale 2. Okay. Now we have image texture that is exactly correct, and after that it's just to take and render it, and if you want it really good, then of course put everything like denoising and the sampling to something that you think is okay before you do the render. Could be good to just save it before you do render, and then it's just to press render, and it will go through the material that you have done and create an image that you later can save. What we will do with this image is then take it into GIMP and create some glossiness and some bump. Then I have opened GIMP, and now we should just create one glossy and one bump map, and that is easily done. I now have GIMP in Swedish, but I don't think it will be hard to follow anyway. To make a bump, it's really easy. You just change it to grayscale. So you take your colors and you go to get to this one. I don't know the name for it in English, but if you take that, you get the grayscale, and you can just press OK. This will be the bump map, and when it is a bump map, everything that is dark will go down and what's bright will stay up. And what we can do right now is to add some of these boxes here, so it looks a little bit like stones that we have put into place. And that is just to do. So we select something and say that we will have like this area here, perhaps. So we would like to have a rather soft thing here, so like that. We'll take down the opacity a little bit. and then we go to edit and take this, and we select that we will use that pencil and put OK on that one. And then you will see you have this dark edge around, which is perfect because then we have something that's going down there. And then of course we can do the same to the other things that we think should go down in. You can do whatever you want, of course, but this is just so you have something to look at. And I will edit, do exactly the same here. And those that know how GIMP works, I'm sure you have plenty of ideas to how to do this in a more simple way. But I'm a Blender person and not a GIMP person. I use this only when I have to. We can take those. No, we stay here. You understand the idea. So take archive and I take export as and floor tile, and in this case I call it bump, and I export it. No confirmation, export, and that is fine. Then I open the old one again. That I now have here. And I do a grayscale of that as well. So colors and this one, but I take luminance, which will get a more powerful white and black, and that will work very well with glossiness. And I press OK, and I just save that as well. So export as, and then I call it floor tile glossy, like this, and export. Okay, now we're back to GIMP, and it's completed from the beginning. And now we just delete the box. Shift A, mesh plane for adding a new plane. And we should have our node editor and create a new material, and also the backlight. So we take background, environment texture, and open our winter forest that I normally use here. And now it's time to use those images that we had. So we put in an texture, image texture, and we used 3 of them. So Shift D, and we connect everything that we should connect in a good way. So we need one diffuse, image texture diffuse, open, and I save mine here, floor tile diffuse. As you can see, it is now no, because we need to UV unwrap it as well, so that we can do it very fast. Just go to edit mode. We can put in an image here, so we can see UV image editor. Go to shading. Since it's just a plane, we just press unwrap and we are finished. Okay. So then go back again to object mode, and if we now press rendered, yes, now you can see it. So UV unwrapped image texture, we had one for the glossy, so we take that in, floor tile glossy, put it up here about, and need in that case of course a glossy, and we could also use a mix, so shader mix, connect those two, and we will use the color from this one and put it as non-color data, and we can decide how much glossiness we want here, of course, like this. and now it looks rather flat and boring, so we need some bump as well. So we go into our material nodes and we take out the bump that we had, and now we connect that image to the bump vector and put non-color data there, put the color to the height and normal, and put that to normal. And now we have a fantastic image created from scratch using mathematics. And then of course we can just go in and build a big floor like this, and perhaps add another array, put 0 here, put 1 here, and now we have a really nice looking floor built from scratch, and we can now just do some small adjustment, whatever we feel like. And as you can see, those lines that I did in GIMP create now nice borders on this floor, and that you can of course do as you want to by yourself. So that is how you do your own image textures or procedural material using the Blender cycles and some math. Hope you learned something, and if you enjoyed, then please subscribe so you know when I will have the next video out. And see you. Bye.